It's been exactly 1 month since I issued an unholy challenge to the world, and I pray the Lord can forgive us for this sin. I did something pretty sinister. I set in motion a series of events that would lead to hundreds, if not thousands, of people suffering, and this action will probably cement me in the history books right next to Vlad the Impaler when it comes to humanity's most prolific torturers. I opened Pandora's box and released all the evil inside directly into the bloodstream of gamers everywhere. I put a $5,000 bounty on completing the hardest challenge in gaming, a challenge that no one has completed in 18 years, and then a week ago I actually upped that bounty from $5,000 to $20,000 since no one had claimed it over the last 3 weeks, and it's now been a month and still no one has claimed it. So in case you haven't been keeping up, I'll break it down as quickly as possible, give you a nice concise plot summary here to catch you up on the lore. I issued a challenge to anyone in the world to complete Halo 2 on Legendary difficulty, solo, with every single original skull turned on except for Envy. The skulls in Halo 2 modify the game to make it harder. The only skull that doesn't do that is Envy. It gives you camo when you turn on a flashlight, so it's actually helpful. Turn that skull off, keep every other skull on, so 13 skulls on Legendary difficulty, solo, completing the entire game without dying. No deaths. Not a single death. If you die, you restart the whole thing. And it all has to be streamed, so that way we can verify that it was all done in a single run without any external cheats or splicing or editing tricks. It has been an absolute joy to watch people run this. Since upping the bounty to $20,000, we've gotten a couple hundred, if not a couple thousand new runners all trying it, and pretty much all of them have given up by now over the last, 48 hours, I'd say. They've just begun to fizzle out, probably for their own mental health, because if they kept going, they'd end up locked in a mental institution, because it is absolutely diabolical. It is fucking brutal. And since upping it to 20,000, it actually got picked up by a ton of news outlets. It went viral on Twitter with the entire Halo community talking about it. Even 343 Studios even mentioned it, wondering if it's possible, which it is. It is legitimately possible, just extremely hard. A ton of other outlets picked up on it, but not just in the US. It became international news for gamers. I know, Famitsu, if that's how you say it, was talking about it. I also heard it was pretty big in Germany for a little while. So the news of the bounty has spread far and wide since upping it, and it has been incredible seeing so many people try it. I have watched probably close to 100 hours worth of people doing this bounty run, these bounty runs. It's been amazing. Now, I'd like to further illustrate just how difficult this challenge is, because I know a lot of people who might not be familiar with Halo 2 hear this and it's like, it's a first-person shooter, how can it be that difficult? I just want to start laying out the brass tacks here, because what I've done here is basically what Pain did in Naruto. I taught the world what true pain and agony feels like when I brought this bounty into existence here. I opened a portal directly to hell. So, like I mentioned, over the last month, we've had, if I had to guess, probably 1,000 to 1,500 runners actively trying it. That doesn't count people who tried it for a single stream for 2 hours and gave up. I'm talking about people that have tried it a few times over the course of a few days. Probably around 1,000 to 1,500. Do you know how many people made it past level 1? 7. 7 goddamn chiseled warriors made it past level 1 and have had actual deep runs. Just 7. It's right out of The Boys. 7 superheroes here. And the crazy thing is, statistically, you have better odds of making it to the NBA than you do making it past level 1 here in this challenge. It's fucking absurd. I want to quickly shout out these 7 brave gladiators for going into the Thunderdome and popping off. We have Jervalen, Pedrogas, Cordiaxis, Eric, Frazier, Mr. Monopoly, and Halo Completionist. There's also one runner on YouTube named Carrier who has also had a run to, I believe, Arbiter. So it's actually 8, but 7 on Twitch. And it's been so fun to watch. So I want to go a little deeper in there. Halo 2 has 13 levels. It's an extremely long campaign. From start to finish, this run, when completed, will probably take roughly 7 hours, maybe 7.5 hours of a single run. So 7 to 7.5 hours to complete the game with this bounty like this. And right now, the furthest anyone's made it is to level 10 out of 13. It's the hardest level in the entire run. It's called Gravemind. And you get to Gravemind at around 4 hours and 30 minutes. So you're 4 hours, 30 minutes into a run. You're already getting a little fatigued, maybe a little bit sweaty. Maybe your vision's blurred because you're starting to get malnourished because you haven't had vitamins in a while because you forgot to eat. So you get to Gravemind, you're excited, and then, you know what? You gotta buckle down because it's the hardest goddamn mission in the run. It's actually the hardest level in all of Halo. So if you fuck up there, you start the whole thing over. 4 hours and 30 minutes right into the shitter. It is brutal. And of the 8 people who have made it past level 1 multiple times, there's only one person who's made it to Gravemind, and that's Jervalen. Jervalen has made it to Gravemind 6 times, and one of his runs, he actually almost completed it. It has been outstanding to watch. Jervalen is an absolute fucking surgeon at Halo 2. He's definitely the front runner and the favorite to actually claim the bounty here, and I do think he has the best shot at completing this, but that's not to say that none of the other runners have a chance. All of the other runners are just now learning this. They're figuring it out and starting to get their footing. Jervalen's had years of experience running this. So the other runners are finally making deep runs consistently. So we've had like 5 of those runners make it all the way to level 7, which is Regret. Some of them have done it a couple times. So there's definitely like heated competition now as people are really starting to get their footing and get a handle on it. So I'm really excited to see it continue to develop. And I just want to say, Jervalen's clips are some of the most entertaining I've seen. They're so fucking fun. I just want to show you like a montage of his most iconic deaths so far over just the last week. Since raising the bounty to 20k, the goofiness has been dialed up to 11. It's been so wild and wacky. Let me show you some of this.
It's more of a, what do you want to call it? More of a personal thing, dude. I like my VODs to be flawless. Holy mother shit! Well, that's what I get. Just come here. You're in melee mode. Oh my god! Oh my! Wow. That one I think I need to be more to the right. I think I know what to do. I'm here, like this. Yeah, he's stuck. Oh my! I just got baited, chat. I got baited.
Exodia! Obliterate!
Bye! You fucking idiot. Get out! You and your dumb shit. Come! Come! Get out! Holy shit. Getting off. Oh my god. No way. Fuck you. Oh my god. The fucking thing closed! You suck! Oh! Holy sh... What? The fuck just happened?
Every death in this run is heartbreaking because it takes so long to get back to it. But Jervalen does a great job even as a streamer because he's constantly talking to chat. In fact, one thing I've noticed about this bounty is all of the best runners are also really good streamers. Throughout the run, and since it's such a long run, they're always joking with chat, talking to chat, telling stories, keeping it lighthearted. So it's not only just like good content from like a gameplay perspective, but it's just like entertaining stream content in general. Like all 8 of these runners are like actually good streamers too, which is fantastic, a nice cherry on top of the cake. Now all of these goofy deaths I've shown you are not Gravemind. I want to show you 3 Gravemind deaths that he got this week, all of which would make even the strongest man weep. It's so sad. To get to Gravemind and die is just a rough feeling because it takes so long. So all of these are like 5 hours-ish, and my god, do they hurt.
Well then! I have to get health off this guy or I'm gonna die in the next section anyway. I do have shield though, or I do have some health left on my character, so it'd be fine. Okay. Bait the overheat.
That last death is especially painful because he had gotten so far. That right now is the furthest any mortal has made it in this bounty. So what he did is he got through like the hardest part of Gravemind, which is a component called Prison. He was pretty much through Prison for the most part and was almost in that home stretch, but was unfortunately cut short by some drones. Drones are like the little flying insect guys that fucked him in the ass here, unfortunately. This was 5 days ago. And I still think Rebellion's just one good run away from clutching this all out. But it's tough. It's just a really hard bounty, but I've got to tell you, the fucking stream content is amazing. I have watched so many streams. When I'm not doing anything or when I'm just like hanging out, even when I'm lifting, I always have someone's stream up that's doing this bounty because it's so fucking entertaining. It's not the same thing every time. Like, for example, I like speedrunning. I love watching speedrunning, but once it's figured out, like once the route's established, most speedruns play out the same and it's just a matter of executing it flawlessly and executing it better than everyone else, which is great to see. But here, that doesn't really apply. Yes, the runners are all using similar, if not the same routes, depending on the game they're playing, whether it's Halo 2 Classic or Halo 2 Anniversary, but it changes so much between every run because there's a lot of RNG to it. The enemies spawn might be a different weapon. Like sometimes an elite will spawn with dual plasmas, maybe not. Sometimes enemies will do things that they've never done before, like the AI just goes rogue. Sometimes they won't even die to a back smack with like they're supposed to, which can just fuck your run right away. It is all about adapting to the bullshit. So every run is always different and exciting. Just absolutely exhilarating to watch. So many incredible moments from this, and I absolutely love it. I know this challenge will be completed. I have no doubt about it. I know there were a couple people, like YouTubers, saying that it probably never will be done or calling it straight up impossible, but it's not. It is doable. It's just going to take the perfect run, and when that happens, it's going to be absolutely historic. 18 years, no one's been able to do it, and I know we're going to see it. Could be any day now someone's going to pull it off. I know it, and I'm excited for it. And I'm just going to keep watching because this shit's so much fun. This bounty has been amazing, and I just wanted to give a little update on where everyone's at and how it's all going. So yeah, that's about it. So yeah. Hope you've got your umbrellas out because it's about to start raining with my tears. I'm going to go on a passionate rant here, and it might ruffle a few feathers, but you know what? Facts don't care about your feelings, and I'm about to start spitting those. There are so many people whining about Elden Ring's DLC being too hard. Let that sink in for a moment. For actual years now, one of the most prevalent memes in the gaming community is how bad game journalists are at the games they review. So the community has constantly dropped trouser and taken a shit on them anytime they mention the difficulty of a game being too hard. And now that Elden Ring DLC's dropped, there are so many players that are now leaving so many negative reviews because they think the DLC is unfairly difficult. You either die a gamer or live long enough to see yourself become a journalist. The shoe's on the other foot here. So now there's people just fucking moaning about it being too difficult and being upset about that. Now, contrary to what some Twitter rage bait engagement is trying to lead you to believe, not every bad review of the DLC is about it being too difficult and like soiling their diaper about it. There are some legitimate complaints about it, like a lot of people are citing performance problems, like a lot of issues with the DLC itself from the performance side of things. I haven't had any problems personally, but if that is something people are experiencing, that's a very legitimate reason to leave a bad review. But there is a ton of people leaving bad reviews about the difficulty. That is actually true. It's just not all of them. There's so much to unpack here, and it's time for a little tough love. So, I am a huge fan of Souls games. My favorite genre of video game is Souls-like. I play all of them. Not just like the FromSoft games, but all games in this genre. So even the super stinkers like Lords of the Fallen. I try them all because I really love this genre of game. And Elden Ring is tied for my favorite Souls game in existence. It's tied with Bloodborne. And the DLC, I think, is extremely good. It's not perfect. There are legitimate complaints to have about it, but one of them is not the difficulty. This fucking DLC comes with built-in training wheels should you choose to activate them with the Scadu Tree fragments. As you collect these throughout the world, you'll get a boost to your offensive and defensive capabilities, serving as a permanent boost to DLC damage dealt and negation. So if you're tired of banging your head against the wall, getting your butt cheeks blasted by whatever boss you're stuck on, make like Marco Polo and explore the land collecting these sacred Dragon Balls here so that way you can have an easier time with the bosses. Or you could subscribe to the ancient belief system and just get good. Just be better. Elden Ring is also a game, really every Souls game, has always been a series really, where it's as difficult as you make it. There are broken builds that you can use, especially in Elden Ring. There's full-blown mechanics that are there to help you through difficult challenges. With summoning, you can just use a mimic tier to help you get through a boss. You don't have to go summonless. Like if you're struggling to a point that you're about to cast self-destruct like a Voltorb and leave a incendiary negative review on Steam because you can't beat the dancing lion, just use a fucking summon. You aren't good enough to do it without clearly, and what are you trying to prove anyway? Just use a summon, get through the boss, and enjoy the game. Like, it's not like you're out here trying to prove yourself as a man or whatever. Just use a summon in that case. Like, I saw so many reviews saying, like, I refuse to summon, but I also can't beat any of these enemies, so this DLC fucking sucks, it's poorly designed. No, you're just trash. Like, you're just trash, and you're not able to reach the challenge you've set for yourself. So, how about instead of blaming the DLC for your shortcoming, just use a summon, go grab some Scadu Tree fragments, and enjoy it. Like, this doesn't need to be some kind of torturous struggle. You're not held captive at Guantanamo Bay, forced to do a level 1 Wretch playthrough of the Elden Ring DLC. It's supposed to be fun. And it is. It is difficult, but that's always been one of the big selling points of Souls games, that they're challenging. And people used to, again, spit on those that would insult the series for being hard. And now with this one, somehow the prevalent discussion has been about how it's too hard and they've gone too far this time. It's not just Steam reviews, I've actually seen streamers saying the same thing, which is, it's blowing my mind. Like, I actually am shocked that we're at this point where everything needs to be so hand-holdy that now if you can't complete your challenge run of Elden Ring because the DLC is a little more brutal than what you're used to, it's the game's fault, and From Software fucked up. It's stupid. It's really stupid. There is built-in systems here to make it easier for you. You can also use sorcery or something, use fucking buffs, use summons. Like, there's so many options for you to get through this DLC, and just because you're struggling to get through it with a challenge you've set for yourself isn't the DLC's fault. There are real criticisms for it, though. For instance, I'm going through this DLC and I play all of Souls games summonless. I like to have it at the most optimal challenge imaginable because that's the most fun for me in these kind of games. So I've been doing a punch-only build, and I've switched it to a punch-and-kick-only build now with martial arts, and it's been extremely challenging and extremely rewarding. However, there have been 2 bosses so far that are actually not well made. One of them is Commander Gaius, Hog Rider. Hog Rider has 2 moves that come out where the hitboxes don't match the animations. So his charge, if you dodge it perfectly, sometimes you will still take the full impact, which often one-taps you. And also his, like, I don't even know what to call this move, but where he, like, flails around randomly and, like, fucking throws his head around like he's headbanging at a fucking Bullet for My Valentine concert from 2006. That move will hit you pretty much anywhere unless you're in his butthole. So anything aside from his colon, you're still going to take damage from, even if you do roll it right, at least most of the time. And then the other boss that has 1 bad set of moves is Mesmer. I actually really like Mesmer. I think he's a very, very, very cool boss. Took me 27 tries, so far that is the boss that's taken me the most amount of tries in all of Elden Ring on my punch-only run. And he was fantastic, except for one thing. His phase 2, he summons snakes. The snake's hitboxes are so fucking janky. The snake hitboxes actually are almost non-functional sometimes, like in the worst possible way. Like what you're seeing doesn't match what you're experiencing. Like the snake will completely fucking miss you, but then you'll still get hit sometimes. So that was a bit of a headache, so there is some jankiness to it that you can criticize. But to be leaving such terrible reviews only because it's difficult is absolutely juvenile. That shit is so embarrassing. This is some of the best DLC I've played. FromSoft, I think, has always crushed it with their DLC, and this one's no exception. I don't think it's their best DLC. I still like Bloodborne's DLC the most, but I really, really appreciate this. This is the biggest DLC I've ever played. I'm not a big DLC guy. I'd rather just get another game down the line as opposed to like a little snack of something I already enjoyed. I'd rather just get something else later that's bigger. But this DLC, I've already pumped like 15, 16 hours in, and I still haven't finished. I'm loving it. It's huge. It really does feel almost like an Elden Ring 1.5. Like, it's that big. It has that much meat on its bones. The girth is impressive. And the music is beautiful. I love the new area. I love almost all of the new bosses, except here's a criticism that I think some people might not agree with. I'm pretty upset with how many bosses are mounted. I've already fought so many mounted bosses, and I think mounted enemies are kind of the lamest. Because the movesets are pretty derivative, like they're pretty similar, and I just don't really like the way mounted enemies fight, because usually it's a spam these couple of moves, then run away, and you're forced to kind of chase them for the punish window, as opposed to getting a punish right after the moves. You kind of have to fucking chase them to get a little punish, and I don't really like that much, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. I've been really loving the DLC, but absolutely hating the conversation around it in regards to the difficulty of it. I don't think it's too hard, but I have always said that the challenge of the Souls-like genre is something that's always going to be a bit restrictive to some people. Not everyone's going to appreciate that, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like, if it's just not your cup of tea, that's totally fine to just say, like, hey, I don't really like the challenge of this, so it's not for me. That I have always understood, and I've mentioned that before in Moist Meters for previous Souls games. It is just very understandable to not want a really big challenge. But for the Elden Ring DLC, these aren't just the normal, casual players coming in out of nowhere. The only way you get to the DLC is if you've already done a lot in the base game. So you should already be familiar with the challenge Elden Ring presents. Thus, going into the DLC, I really think you should have come in with the understanding that it's going to be hard. It shouldn't be hard. If it was anything less than difficult, it'd be very disappointing and a far cry from what made this genre so special in the first place. And I don't think they've done anything, nefarious with the scaling of the difficulty here. It's not too hard. You're making it harder on yourself by not collecting the material they put in here to make it easier, or not using certain mechanics to make it easier with summoning or sorceries or really strong weapons that have really good abilities. Like, there are so many options that you can use here to help you through the challenging portions of this game. And you can't start pointing the fucking finger at the game itself just because you're refusing to do those things because you think it's beneath you or something, or maybe it's shameful. I don't really know. But it's not the DLC's fault that you want to go through the game in the most difficult way imaginable and then be mad about that when you have all the power in the world not to. You can just use something better, or go get the scattered tree fragments. Like, you have so many options. So I really think it's a very weak reason to be, you know, leaving such terrible reviews of the DLC. Like I said, there are real reasons not to like it. Like, it's not perfect. Nothing ever is. A lot of reviews I've seen point to performance problems. I haven't had any performance problems, but if that is a prevalent issue with the DLC, then that's something that does make sense too. Like, that would be a reason to leave a negative review. Nothing wrong with that. It's just calling it too difficult is so silly. I can't believe we've reached this point now. It's very interesting to see. That's about it. So yeah, that's it. I've had enough, and I'm going to do something I don't normally do. This may come as a shock to a lot of people here, but it's warranted in this situation. I'm going to complain. I'm breaking new ground here, and I realize you may not have ordered the wine off the menu, but I'm still going to bring it to your table anyway. I just made a video on the second channel talking about this, and I figured, you know what, now I've got it out of my system, I won't need to carry on the temper tantrum, stomping my feet and scream crying like a baby with diaper rash. But how wrong I was. I watched the PlayStation showcase today, and it reminded me that Street Fighter 6 is just around the corner. So I went on Steam to preload the game, only to find out that it's a 60 gigabyte game. And I almost let out a wail straight out of Tom and Jerry, one of those yow things. It just infuriates me. It grinds my ass. I am so tired of this trend in the modern gaming industry where not a single iota of care is given to optimization at all. Like, the minimum requirements to play some of these games is absurd. You'll need like a $2,000 gaming computer in order to play Lord of the Rings Gollum on low settings. Like, it's so stupid. And not only like the price point to even play some of the games at the minimum level, like, the amount of space you need to allocate for a single game is ridiculous too. Like, Call of Duty is 120 gigabytes or something. For that size, I would expect that game to actually come out of the computer and suck my wiener and fondle my nuts like it's playing with Fushigi contact juggling balls. Like, that is so stupid. Like, how large the games are because they don't bother to compress it, and how expensive it is to even get into modern gaming on the PC. Because again, they're not bothering with optimization anymore, and I don't fully blame the developers, because I really think this is a byproduct of this fucking turbo fixation on deadlines, like the strictest deadlines ever. So the devs have to focus on trying to make the game as polished and as good as they can, which often doesn't even really happen half the time. But they can't then allocate resources to making sure the game can run well on less high-end hardware. Like, I definitely really think this is a management problem where they're not allowing the developers to optimize the game. Like, they're not giving them enough time to even go through that process, which is why the minimum requirements to play modern games is getting higher and higher and higher, and the amount of space they take up is getting higher and higher and higher. And I think it's just actual dog shit. It's going in the wrong direction for gaming. You shouldn't be paywalling people out of playing games on the PC. Period. Like, as games progress, the hobby should become cheaper and more accessible over time. Not like something only enjoyed by the uber wealthy who can have like a $10,000 supercomputer and have like a fucking Zordon AI assistant in order to help run Forspoken 2, right? Now, Forspoken I actually think is a great example of this phenomenon. It's a laughable joke of a game. Forspoken is terrible. But it required crazy rigs in order to just function properly for the most part, for most people. Like, the recommended ask for the game was enough to make people slap their knee and giggle, because it is so silly how expensive the rig you'd even need to play the game with the way they recommend it. For no real reason either. It's not the most breathtaking game ever made. It's not some like innovation in the industry, unless of course you're classifying over-the-top annoyingness as an innovation, going where no game has gone before with making the player have a fucking perpetual headache listening to the awful dialogue. But like, there's just nothing in the game that would justify those requirements. It's so silly. Now I want to play some clips from the video I posted on my second channel yesterday because it goes more in depth on Lord of the Rings Gollum in particular, because I think that is just another perfect case study of this awful trend in gaming. No matter what computer you're running, there should be some capability of it to run a modern game. Within reason, of course. Like if you're on like 15-year-old hardware, yeah, I can understand why most games probably won't be optimized for that. But in general, there's no reason that people should be paywalled from playing modern games on the PC. There just isn't. You shouldn't need a fucking 4090 in order to play, you know, Redfall and still only get 30 FPS. Like there's just, it doesn't make any sense. And what's got me talking about this today is there's a game coming out that I'm sure most of you have either forgot about or never cared about in the first place. It's the Gollum game, the Lord of the Rings Gollum game. And I just learned that the minimum requirements to play this game are extremely high. Like the computer specs you need in order to run this game, bare minimum, are still laughably expensive. Like you still need pretty top-of-the-line equipment for the most part in order to run it well. Or at all, I suppose. And that just doesn't make any sense because the Gollum game doesn't even look good. It looks like shit. I'm hoping the game will at least be fun. I'm gonna give it a fair shake of the sauce bottle here, give it a whirl, but I'm not expecting much. The trailers and everything they've shown, the game is not visually impressive by any means. It looks barely above a normal indie title you'd find dumpster diving through Steam new releases. So how could they possibly justify the minimum requirements here? It's not adding up. Those were the clips from the second channel video. I realized that you couldn't see a difference since I'm still wearing the same shirt. My hair's pretty much the same. So you probably didn't even realize that it wasn't the same video, but yeah. I was going in depth on Lord of the Rings Gollum in particular. Now another thing I touched on that I want to expand on in this video is that this is usually a big red flag that the PC port of a game is trash. Now, Lord of the Rings Gollum looks like a game that you'd find on a Nintendo Switch. And that's because it is. Lord of the Rings Gollum is on the Nintendo Switch. So why the fuck can it run on the Switch, which struggles with like a normal mobile game? That thing would probably fucking explode if you fed it Angry Birds. Why can Lord of the Rings Gollum run on the Switch, and then on the PC be so demanding that you need a pretty high-end gaming computer to run it at all, really? It isn't making any sense. Now, usually it's because there was absolutely no effort put into a PC port. That's usually what it means. I can't really think of many examples where a PC port of a game comes out with these big specs that you need in order to run it, and huge file size, all of that, and then it actually being in a good state. Usually it's a broken, buggy mess, and just a genuinely terrible experience. Like a horrible PC port. That's usually how these things play out. Like, this is a big red flag to me now, where if a game's like, hey, you need, you know, at least a 4090 to play this game with even medium graphics, and it's also 280 gigabytes, I'm usually thinking to myself, this game's gonna fucking suck, isn't it? This game's barely going to be functional. That's just how I've been conditioned from modern gaming. Now, of course, I'm not speaking in absolutes here. There definitely are exceptions. There are some games that come out on the PC that are fantastic, like great PC ports, super polished, no problems at all. But that's kind of rare. Like that doesn't happen super often anymore. The trend is going down where the quality of the PC ports is getting worse and worse and worse for some reason. Yet the demands in order to play them are getting higher and higher and higher. It's just all fucking cattywampus. It's all backwards here, really, and it's really frustrating. At the end of the day, it sucks. I wish developers were given more time to fully polish these PC ports, because when you release a bad PC port, we just talked about this with Jedi Survivor, you do yourself a huge disservice. You immediately ruin the reputation of the game, and it never really fully recovers from it. If you have a bad PC launch, that alienates a large group of consumers, and it gives horrible press to the game overall that extends even into the console market where, you know, people that maybe aren't super tuned in to the discussion around games will hear through the grapevine like, oh, Jedi Survivor fucking sucks? It barely works? Oh, okay, well, I guess I won't even bother getting the PS5 version of it then. Because when you release a bad PC port, people are obviously upset, so they talk about it. And people hear about it. So even if someone was considering it on, like, a console, they'll think twice when they hear what everyone else is saying about how it is on PC. I don't know why developers haven't realized that. Releasing a shitty, haphazardly thrown together PC port never works out well for the game, period. And it never actually fully recovers either, even if they do go back and tweak it and fix it and make it functional and better. Like, I always appreciate they do that, but it never recovers from that, and it should have just been done in the first place instead of releasing a incomplete, not fully functional product. That's unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable. I know I'm getting a little off on a tangent here, but it all just kind of ties in together with the modern gaming state on the PC in particular. It's just frustrating. It's just overall very frustrating, so I wanted to rant about it again, and that's about it. So yeah. If you've been on the World Wide Web at any point over the last 24 hours, I'm sure you've seen #SaveTF2. It's a Twitter hashtag that's been trending for a while now. It has like 300,000 individual tweets about it. It's become the most talked about thing since the Bible, honestly. And I'm sure most of you know what it's about, but I'm going to go ahead and explain it all anyway. SaveTF2 is about the game Team Fortress 2. It came out in 2007, it's a Valve game, and even though the game's 15 years old, older than half the people who use Twitter, it has still maintained a very active and healthy community, always averaging over 50,000 players per month, which is actually a huge number. Most new releases don't average those player numbers. Like Halo Infinite's got like 5k left, Battlefield 2042's got like 5 left, and those came out only a few months back. TF2 is just a game that has stood the test of time and remains today to be an extremely fun multiplayer experience. But unfortunately, over the last few years, it's been left out in the rain to fester and die by Valve. And it's been plagued by a lot of problems, which I'll talk about in a moment, but no matter how many times the community's brought up all of their concerns to Valve, it's fallen on deaf ears. When you mention Team Fortress 2 to Valve, it's like they have dementia and don't know what you're talking about. They do their best to forget they ever made this game. It's like they're ashamed of it, almost. There hasn't been any meaningful content updates to the game in years. I believe the last time I checked, it was 1,600 days ago since the last major update. So it's been, it's been a little minute. They have, however, added a few cosmetic items every now and then, as well as once in a blue moon patches, which come out of nowhere and are like fucking jump scares for the community when they happen. But for the most part, Valve seems to have flushed it down the toilet saying, we don't want to play with this toy anymore, and have just left it in an unplayable state. Because 2 years ago is when it really started to become really bad. The game is plagued by bots, where when you go into any game, you are very likely to have bots on the other team which pick the sniper class and insta-kill you. And there's nothing you can do about it besides go to like a community server. Or, I actually remember about a year ago, there was a service you could purchase where you could buy your own bodyguard bots to fight the bots in lobbies. So you'd buy bots from a service that would protect you from bots in your games. That's how bad the game had become. And it's been that way for years. No matter how many times the community begs Valve to do anything, they have done nothing, which is why #SaveTF2 was created. A last-ditch Hail Mary to finally try and get some kind of attention from Valve to at least let the community know that they're aware of the problem and are actively trying to fix it. Because again, even though the game's 15 years old, it maintains an extremely healthy player base, still one of the most played multiplayer games on Steam to this day. Now, of course, half of those players may not actually have a pulse. It probably is a lot of the AI that's infiltrated the game, fucking Skynet there and taken over, but it's still a very large and dedicated community of players, and since Valve is still actively hosting the game on their platform, they still allow you to download the game. At the very least, Valve owes it to have that game be in a playable state. Until the day they decide to shut it down and stop having it on Steam, they have to at least have the game work. They still make a ton of money from Team Fortress 2 hat sales and crate keys and all of that shit, so they need to at least have the game be a playable fucking experience, I would think. Now, the #SaveTF2 movement was actually successful. Team Fortress 2's official Twitter account came out of hibernation to make one tweet to at least let people know that they're alive, there's somebody in the department somewhere that's still breathing, and they managed to dust off the old login information and post this tweet, first one since 2020, but it's something. It's acknowledgement. It's a step in the right direction. Now, I want to dive into analyzing the problem firsthand. I saw Mudahar in his video go on a fresh account right into TF2 casual and immediately falling into bot lobbies off rip. and I wanted to try it myself to see if the same thing would happen to me, because it's been happening to pretty much everyone that's tried to play the game over the last couple years. When they try and queue up into a public lobby, they just get bots that immediately ruin the experience and drive people away. Now, for those that aren't super aware, when I say bots, I mean that it's just actually bots. It's not somebody that's just cheating with an aimbot or something. It is people that have programmed like entire bot farms to go into these public lobbies just to insta-kill everyone and ruin it, to like actually just ruin the game. There's nothing to be gained for it from them, except to drive the players away from playing it. It's fucking wild. Now before hopping in for my investigation, I'd like to thank OperaGX for sponsoring the video. Thanks OperaGX for sponsoring today's video. OperaGX is my go-to internet browser. It is just by far the most efficient out there. It doesn't just use all of your computer's resources for no reason, doesn't tank performance when playing a game or anything, and it's just super customizable. You can have animated backgrounds, you can have all kinds of incredibly fun stuff to make OperaGX yours and make it feel unique to anyone else out there. They also have extensions and add-ons of their own, so all of the extensions that you're used to, you can also find on OperaGX as well. OperaGX also has the ability for you to put your messengers on the side of the browser, so that way you can just have the messages there and you can talk to people while browsing without having to flip through tabs or different screens or anything like that. So it's all just super convenient right there at your fingertips. With OperaGX, there's something called GX Profiles, which lets you create a completely custom browser that's perfectly suited for any activity you do online. So for example, streaming, if you're worried about maybe showing private information, you can edit it to do configuration streaming. There's just so much that you can customize to make it suit what you want. And there's even something a little fun OperaGX has done by setting up a Minecraft server for the GX Discord community. And they have 4 maps in Minecraft that are suited for SMP, duels, bridges, and maybe even survival. If you're interested in getting started with OperaGX, you can click the link in the description below to get started for free. So I logged in for the first time in years. Team Fortress 2 actually used to be my most played game on Steam back in 2011-2012, but I took a long break from it. And this is the first time I've been on in a long time. I'm just randomly queuing into public lobby, right off rip, fresh. And I expected this to go just like every other video I've watched on the current state of TF2. I expected to immediately queue into a lobby dominated by bots, but I didn't. In fact, I'm sure the players thought I was the bot because my aim with the sniper was so fucking nutty. I thought it'd be fun to try and counter-snipe the bots, but since I didn't get any, I just ended up stomping. And this actually continued for about 5 or 6 games, and I think what happened is I got extremely lucky because there were so many new players that came in because of Save TF2 that I ended up queuing up with real players who were doing the same thing I was. Either that or like my MMR was too high for bots to join. I don't know if that's a real thing, but I mentioned it on stream and some people said that might have been the case. I played a lot of TF2, like I said, for a long time, so I probably did have high MMR. If that's something that they consider for casual lobbies, I don't know. But that could have been another factor if that's something that's taken into account in the game. But regardless, I think the most likely answer for why I wasn't getting into bot lobbies when it's such a rampant problem is just because of how many new players came in over the last 24 hours. It just flooded out the bots and real lobbies got made. Now, after about 15-ish minutes, I did queue into a game with my first bot, and it was just as advertised from everything I read and everything I saw. It was a bot that was noise spamming the mic with, I believe it was just a YouTube video on loop, and it was a bot that could insta-kill everyone on the map pretty much at all times whenever there was any kind of sightline.
So, you know the game TF2, right? You know, like, one of the best games around. Valve, the people who made it, kind of gave up on it. And I, for the life of me, cannot tell you why. So, because of it, there's a TF2. And I was like, man, this is actually kind of awesome. There is a lot of people. The community isn't toxic. The thing that's ruining TF2 right now is the bots. Omegatron, Magic. It's ruining.
Now you can see he's killing people without ever looking at them. He just insta-flicks and then right back to just looking all fucking dazed and confused because the bot is programmed to insta-kill everything that moves on the map. You can see why this would be game ruining when there's entire lobbies of bots just like this. It's basically just bots fighting each other in this unholy war, and occasionally a human being accidentally queues into it, and it's awful. One bot can ruin an entire lobby. Imagine multiple in every game, every time you try and play. That's been the state of TF2 for about 2 years now. But I wanted to go a bit deeper and see if I could find one of these lobbies, because today it seemed pretty difficult just because of how many players were coming back to it or trying it out. So I was getting legitimate lobbies. I wasn't actually finding these, but I know they exist because I've seen so many posts and so much footage of them. I just wanted to experience it firsthand. In every single game I joined over the course of an hour, there was at least one bot per game. Now, luckily, a lot of times what would happen is the bot would get kicked, but unfortunately, as the game would go on, another bot would sometimes just join and get kicked again eventually, but just a massive headache. So I guess that lucky streak I had at the beginning had fizzled out, because every game I joined over the course of like an hour did have at least one bot there to start. And the worst case was I joined a lobby that had, I think it was 3 bots total, and one of them was of course doing the mic spam as well. And that one was truly miserable.
Don't hit me with that mallet. Yellowish pews, nilly-nilly. Yellowish pews. You're going outside. Look at him go. Daddy's little simpleton. Okay, farm boys.
You can see in the kill feed it is nothing but bots headshotting each other over and over and over again. This was the worst lobby I joined. But like I said, over the course of that hour after the first like 5 or 6 matches with no bots, I got a bot in pretty much every match. At least in the beginning, until they would get kicked or until one would rejoin and get kicked. But there were bots, a lot of them. The game is not in a super fun state, but I know right now it's better than it has been just because so many people flock to the game with the save TF2 hashtag. So even if Valve really takes their sweet time fixing this, which God knows they probably will, I don't even know if they have game developers left on staff anymore. They do so little for their games. I don't know who's there coding anymore. But even if they take a long time fixing the problem, I think this massive influx of players has been a really great thing for the game itself anyway, for the health of the game, because with so many players that all went to the game, the casual lobbies filled up with so many players that are actually there to play and kick out the bots. And the community servers have been popping off as well because of so many new bodies in the game, and that's great. So there's a lot of options to play it now, so it's a little bit better than it was before the hashtag. So overall, I'd say that hashtag SaveTF2 has been very successful, and hopefully Valve will finally fix the game and get it into a playable state. And who knows, maybe they'll be feeling really generous and actually deliver new content to the game. That would be fucking wild, because the community has been starving, and Valve has not even decided to piss in their mouth to give them a little something for the game. They're doing below the bare minimum for Team Fortress 2, and I'm hoping that that will change at some point, because the game still is super fun and super popular. That's about it. See ya. I don't know if I've recently gotten shorter, just got set to mini from Wumbo as I've gotten older, or maybe there was some kind of like small earthquake that hit Florida that didn't register on the Richter scale that's caused my house to droop a little bit, but I just don't occupy the whole frame of this camera anymore. I haven't touched it at all, and I feel like I'm like 15% of what's on the screen right now, so maybe I've been hit with like a fucking shrink ray and just gradually getting smaller. I have no idea, but this tangent is useless. What's not useless, though, is the Save Team Fortress 2 movement. This is a classic, how many times do I have to teach you this lesson, old man moment. I decided to tilt the camera down a little bit. It was really bothering me, and I didn't want to like sit on an apple box to be taller or anything. But the community's been engaged in this war against their creator, Valve, for years now. Team Fortress 2 is an iconic game that is still extremely popular to this day. But it's been left in an abandoned state out alone in the cold rain while Valve does nothing as it is falling to pieces due to bots. Actually, a lot of different things, but it all kind of ties back into bots. And for years now, the community's just been begging Valve to do anything to combat this menace. And 2 years ago, I actually covered their first major attempt called Save Team Fortress 2, Save TF2. I made a whole video going over this. I even went boots on the ground journalism. You know, I investigated it firsthand on the front line. I went into Team Fortress 2 to see just how prevalent the bot issue was. And it's bad. So, for those that don't know, Team Fortress 2 has this problem where there are bots that infest the game. In every single game you join, there is most likely going to be bots, unless you stick to community servers, of course, where they have like anti-bot measures. But if you just join like public lobbies, it's going to be bots. And what the bots do is they pick the sniper, they look straight up in the air, they spin around, and they instantly headshot pretty much everyone on the map, killing them immediately. It ruins the game. It's unplayable. It is unplayable, point blank. And 2 years ago, when Save TF2 was popping off, there was enough hoopla, enough uproar that Valve did make a statement that they were going to do something. And everyone celebrated, pumping their fists, you know, everyone was like Gatorade showers and all of that, thinking that finally Valve is going to do something. And they did, kind of, to a certain extent, but it was a band-aid fix that didn't ever actually tackle the core issue. So, fast forward to 2 years later, and it's still in fucking shambles. It still has a massive bot problem, so the community is once again taking up arms, trying their best to beg Valve to do something to save the game that they love. The new movement is called Fix TF2, and it's the sequel to Save TF2. It has 275,000 signatures for the petition right now, which it's a big number. Now, how popular is TF2? It's an old game, so surely it must not have that strong of a community. You make me fucking sick if you thought that. I'll spit on you for it. Trash. No, it's still very popular, constantly at the top of the Steam charts. Right now, let's take a peek at these player numbers. 84,898 players playing 40 minutes ago as of recording this video, and they actually hit their all-time peak only 11 months ago. So this game is still full of gusto here. It's not like it's, you know, old, decrepit, and dusty. Maybe it's time we think about euthanizing it. It'd be the humane thing to do. Absolutely not. This game is poppin', and it's still making Valve millions upon millions of dollars for no effort. It's like a cheat code here for them, an infinite money glitch. It's like starting an OnlyFans for feet pics, and you only drop one feet pic, but it just keeps auto-renewing because people are just fucking addicted to it. It's a really stupid comparison to make, but it was the first thing I thought of for just like low-effort passive income. Point is, Valve gets millions of dollars just putting both thumbs up their ass and not touching this product because the community loves the game and they buy the microtransactions. I'm sure all of you have played TF2 at some point. It's why I didn't do like a breakdown of what the game is. I bet you know about it, and I bet you're familiar with the hats. Hats in Team Fortress 2 are still iconic, and Valve just makes so much money from this game and they don't do anything for it. So I think shutting it down is not really something that makes sense for anybody, Valve especially. So I don't know why they're so reluctant to do anything to improve it. Probably because they don't need to, because they still make millions from it, and they think it's probably not worth allocating resources. But they should. Like, they should have an obligation to make this game playable. It's still a game that is on their platform, that they make money from, thus they should have the obligation that it is in a functional fucking state for the player base. But yeah, again, this isn't like some old game that maybe it's time they just pull the plug on. That'd be like shoving a cyanide pill down Brendan Fraser's throat. What a waste of potential. Brendan Fraser is still an incredible actor making masterpieces, and Team Fortress 2 is still an incredible game, still a masterpiece, and still has a great, strong community. So shutting it down, I don't think would make any amount of sense. It also makes no sense at all to keep the game in this pathetic state. They should be embarrassed and ashamed. And I don't know why they don't view this as a terrible marketing and reputational play as well. They have a new game coming out. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the leaks. It's called Deadlock, and this is supposed to be a huge game from Valve here. And it's not far out, you know, it's on the horizon here. But how can anyone be excited for that game with the state TF2 is in? Like, let's think about that for a second. Let's say Deadlock gets extremely popular, everyone loves it, it's so good, bang. Now all of a sudden we have some bots and some cheaters in there, which is going to happen. That happens with every game. Well, we now have a track record that shows Valve doesn't do anything to combat that in their games, like Team Fortress 2. So why the fuck would anyone have confidence in the longevity and the health of their next game, Deadlock? This should be extremely concerning for Valve for how people perceive this game coming out, because they can't, or they refuse to fix TF2. So why would people get immediately invested for the long term here, really fuckle their seatbelt and get ready, strap in for the deadlock ride years down the line, when Valve just doesn't take care of their games? They don't do anything. They just let them wither and die, like Team Fortress 2. I feel like it makes it very hard for a lot of players to get excited about the long-term health of a Valve game, because they can look at what Valve doesn't do with TF2 and be like, yep, that's pretty shitty. What they should do is finally just throw the community a bone and put real effort into fixing this game. So on the Fix TF2 website, they kind of break everything down into an easily digestible way. The aimbots need to go. For the past 5 years, Team Fortress 2 has become nearly unplayable. The game's official servers have been overrun by hordes of cheating aimbots, while Valve has remained steadfast in their refusal to adequately tackle the problem. This lack of developer interference has thrown the game into a state of turmoil, with seemingly no end in sight. Despite being aware of the bot crisis, Valve has instead directed their focus towards other ventures, leaving TF2 with insufficient support in its grave time of need. From the outside, Valve appears to be more concerned with generating millions in revenue every month via in-game micros, rather than maintaining a product that should work as expected. There's no putting it lightly, Team Fortress 2 is in an unacceptable state, and Valve's apathy in dealing with the issue is nothing short of appalling. That's the gist of it, but it actually gets so much worse than that. There is so much evil to the Team Fortress 2 bot problem, I don't even know where I'd start. There's quite a few great videos that cover this in far more detail than I would be able to, but one of them that I think is starting to blow up a little bit on Twitter is that some of the bots are actually just taking victory laps about being untouchable because Valve doesn't do anything to fix the problem. And now the bot hosters are actually engaging in full-blown illegal activity. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty and the weeds of it, but some legitimately disgusting, horrible shit that the bots and the bot hosters are engaging in now, because Big Daddy Valve wants to do nothing to solve this problem. Like, this is shit that would 100% be a huge legal issue if authorities ever bothered to investigate. And Valve is just letting it fester. Here's a little more information about the aimbots in general here. They're programmed to join casual servers en masse, insta-killing and kicking innocent players, intent on ruining their in-game experience. This behavior is where most of the community's resentment stems from. However, many are unaware that the problem goes far beyond simply trolling and cheating. The bot hosters are malicious actors using aimbots as a vessel to endlessly attack and harass community members. They abuse the in-game text and voice chat to spread the most vile hate speech imaginable, while simultaneously advertising their bot immunity services in an attempt to scam players desperately looking for a solution. This is something I touched on a bit in my first video covering this 2 years ago. Most of the bots in the lobbies that you join are mic spamming. It's just a bunch of like extremely loud mumbo jumbo. Most of the time you can't even make out a lot of the words. It actually just sounds like farts being transmitted through a ham radio most of the time. It sounds dog shit, like truly atrocious. But some of the bots that mic spam are spamming slurs. So that's a pretty common thing for a lot of the bots. And beyond that, there is something that they've double dipped on when it comes to bots, which is hosting their own immunity services. Which is, this one blew my mind when I first learned about it a couple years ago. The bot problem is so bad in Team Fortress 2 that there's actually services where you can hire bots to join you in your game to kill the other bots in the lobby. So you have your own little bot bodyguards against the bots that you'll encounter. So it's literally fucking Skynet fighting itself while you try and have this little frolic through the fields of playing Team Fortress 2. It's so silly. And Valve knows all of this. They're aware of these problems. It's not like they're just plugging their ears and closing their eyes anymore. They know and have acknowledged the problems, but don't do anything to actually fix them. And now I understand it's a hard thing to fix, and it's an uphill battle when you're dealing with cheating and botting on this scale, but you have to at least try. I saw a really good comment on a YouTube video, and I don't remember which one it was now, but it said that the Valve philosophy is, why would we do this when it's just going to keep happening? And it basically boils down to, why would I wipe my ass after shitting when I'm just going to have to wipe it again after another shit? Like, it's the same logic. You should still be wiping your fucking butt. But Valve just doesn't bother. They're like, yeah, we're just going to have to do it again down the line anyway. Not worth the resources. We'll just keep passively making a couple $1 million here and there from the people that are still playing this game and getting fucked by bots in the face. It's just so frustrating. I really hope Valve will finally do something to fix this game, but I'm pretty skeptical. Like, the last time they made the grand statement that they were, it didn't actually do anything. 2 years ago, they're like, all right, listen, we've heard you. You dialed 911, emergency services. Well, don't worry, help has arrived. Gabe answered the phones personally, and he's fighting the bots tooth and nail, pugilistic style. He's throwing fisticuffs with them, and he's beating the shit out of every bot, socking them in the jaw. The bots are no more. TF2 is saved. We listen to you, community. And then they just didn't do shit. Like they did the bare minimum, and that clearly wasn't good enough. And now, once again, it has gone back to just start collecting cobwebs. It's so fucking infuriating. Valve should be doing all they can to fix this problem before their new game drops. Because, like I said, I think this ruins people's confidence in their upcoming game, considering Valve offers no fucking support whatsoever. So why get invested in their new game when Valve won't? You know what I mean? That's really about it. See ya. The title's not an exaggeration. For 17 years, I've gradually chipped away at a singular goal I've had since I was in 4th grade. That's a long time. That's a really long time. Thousands upon thousands of hours spent striving for one thing. To put that in perspective, I could have been a pilot like 5 times over with that amount of experience and time dedicated to this one field. The Roman Colosseum was built in 8 years. I could have built it twice with the amount of time I put into this. And now I've finally completed it. I caught my Moby Dick. RuneScape maxing. RuneScape is a game that's existed for over 20 years now, and I started playing it back around 2005 when I was in 4th grade. And I've, of course, taken breaks while playing RuneScape throughout the last 17 years, but the beauty of that game is you never quit, you just go on hiatus. You take a little half-time breather in order to recollect your sanity. So I haven't been 17 years straight working on it, but it has been a large part of what I've played over the last 17 years, and I've finally accomplished the ultimate goal in the game that I had set for myself so long ago, which is getting every skill in RuneScape to 99, which is the highest level they can go. To break it down, RuneScape has 23 skills, each one more painful than the last when you're training them. To put it in perspective, 99 takes 13 million XP, and some skills at best will give you like 50 to 60,000 XP per hour. So to max a skill, and depending on what methods and what skill you're going for, it can take hundreds of hours just to get one skill to 99. So you can see where things start to get stinky real fast, because some of these terrible XP rates are the best you can get at optimal efficiency, meaning you're sitting there fucking staring a hole through your computer screen, full focus, full throttle, you know, fucking lat spreading, and risking carpal tunnel, because some of these skills are legitimately just carpal tunnel simulator where you're clicking endlessly in like the same 3 spots over and over again. There's also an even more extreme level to training skills called tick manipulation methods, which I'm not going to really dive into the weeds of. There's no point in pulling up the hood of this car and explaining it, but just know tick manipulation is akin to actual inhumane torture of the human body and soul. They probably wouldn't even subject prisoners in Guantanamo Bay to this level of agony, so I didn't do a whole lot of tick manipulation for my training, but it's out there, and it's a scary thing. That's a fucking boogeyman in RuneScape, if you ask me. But anyway, let me show you the footage of when I finally maxed on stream last night. Prayer potions for everyone, let's go! 2 lamps, oh, we're finally done! We're finally done! Oh! World, what are we in? 446. Oh, the role-playing world, too. Role-playing a goddamn champion. 17 years in the making. 17 years! Oh! 50 years from now, my grandkids are gonna look back at this stream moment and be like, yep, that was old Grandpappy. He did what everyone said was impossible. He fucking maxed in RuneScape like a month before they released a new skill, so he had to do it all over again and felt the pain all anew. But for that one brief, fleeting moment, he was on top of the world. Run it. We're maxed. We're maxed. We're fucking maxed. It's finally done. It's finally done. It's finally over. now I can play the game. How many hours? 4,000 what? 156 days and 22 hours. How many? 4,000 something? Oh, thanks to the resub, Olgerty. And the bits verb. Jesus Christ. What a journey. What a journey. Here, you can have the expeditious bracelets that made it all possible at the end. Thanks for the nuts. Yeah, this is probably my biggest gaming-related achievement ever. Prior to this, it was the 6-move made on XQC in the tournament. This trumps it. This is literally 17 years, since 4th grade. This is my 3rd or 4th account, I don't remember. At least 3rd, I think I had one more right before RS3 rolled around, so... It's been so long in the making, man. People said I wouldn't do it. People said I couldn't do it. Who's laughing now? Not me, because I probably shouldn't have done it. 4,000 hours ain't exactly nothing. It just feels so good to be done. You don't know how many nights I stayed up till 6 fucking AM, just researching efficiency methods for skills I hated, even though I knew there was no new answers. Like for agility in particular, I kept looking for other means that wasn't just doing the goddamn Hallowed Sepulchre or any of the rooftop agility courses. It's just so good to be fucking done. Oh my god. And not having to be on OSRS mobile, constantly fucking AFK grinding something is so nice. Don't have to worry about that anymore thanks to the ale. It's done! Yes! Oh, and the wise old man saying congrats. I accidentally skipped his little speech. Sorry about that. Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, all of Gillenor's coming out to say congrats. Thanks, guys. Yeah, thanks, guys. That's so big. That's so fucking big. You might be asking yourself, what's the point in getting 99 in every skill? What do you get for it? And the answer is going to be different for everyone that you ask, because in the game, the only thing you get is a max cape, which is what you saw me purchase there at the end, which just gives you teleports and a couple of other bonuses. Like, it's a really good item, but it's not required. However, you receive something far more important when you max in RuneScape. You receive inner peace. You reach this spiritual nirvana. Throughout the journey of RuneScape, I've compared the maxing of my account to that scene from Fairly Odd Parents where Timmy and his dad were going up the escalator and Timmy says, "When do we get to the ride?" And the dad says, "This is the ride." That's RuneScape skilling in a nutshell. The skilling process is the most mind-numbing and tedious process that a human being can possibly engage in. It's about as much fun as watching a plant go through photosynthesis. Like, it is horrifically boring to train most of the skills in the game, but people do it. I do it because there's always that light at the end of the tunnel. The big number going up, and the number goes higher. And it tickles some primitive portion of the human brain that makes it so you can't stop. Like, when the beauty of maxing in RuneScape isn't so much that you feel proud of the accomplishment, it's that you feel happy that you're done. Like, it feels like a prisoner being released and getting their freedom back, and now you get to breathe in fresh air again without being encumbered with the thoughts of grinding skills in RuneScape. At least that's, I'm just speaking for myself. There's a phrase that I've used a lot and everyone's used a lot where it's about the journey and not the destination. In RuneScape, that's a load of fucking baloney. That's a whole bunch of dirty barnacles, because it is very much just about the destination, because the journey is the worst part of it. As you can probably tell, I was miserable training most of these skills for maxing my account. But this really proved as a test of endurance for myself, like my mental fortitude. If I could fully commit and bang this shit out, I would feel amazing for it, and I do. I'm very happy that I've done this and challenged myself to actually accomplish something that I've wanted for so long. And believe it or not, there are people that actually genuinely do love skilling. Like, everything I'm talking about negatively here, people talk about positively. It's different for everyone. though I really am at a loss for how anyone can find things like fucking rune crafting or mining and agility fun. Those things I feel like are just objectively evil, and the human race wasn't ready for that kind of plague. But, you know, to each their own. One thing I would like to highlight is, even though I maxed all of the skills, it doesn't mean that I completed the game or even completed skilling. I mentioned that getting 99 is 13 million XP, but there's actually a level going full fucking Insano style that's above that. Those skills max out at 99, but their XP continues. It goes all the way up to 200 million XP before you can no longer gather XP in a given skill. Meaning, in each of the 23 skills, you can get 200 million XP and still be 99. So there are some people, God's champions, that have got 200 million XP in every skill in the game. There's not many of them. There's less of them than there are fucking Avengers in Marvel. But there are some that have done it. And keep in mind, that's like a 20,000 hour journey. Across all 3 or 4 of my RuneScape accounts of the last 17 years, I've probably tickled just north of 10,000 hours. Maybe. However, this group of people that do 200 million in every skill is beyond 20,000. It's on a whole different ball field. It's crazy. And nothing but respect for the people that can actually do that. I'm not built that way, so I'm beyond satisfied with just maxing the account at 13 mil per skill. It took a lot of spit and elbow grease, but we finally muscled our way to the finish line here 17 years later. Like I said, it did take me about 10,000 hours of total playtime across all of my accounts for the last 17 years to reach there. And that's a number that probably sticks out to a lot of you, because it's said that if you spend 10,000 hours in any one thing, you'll become a master of it. And that's certainly not the case here. I guess the only thing that I've mastered across the 10,000 hours I spent grinding for this is self-control. Like, you know, the inability to give up. Like, I refused to throw in the towel. I just kept chipping away at it. So I guess maybe it is true. Like, I did master skill of persistence. So, you know, it doesn't feel worthless. Like, I don't feel like I wasted all of these hours doing it. I'm happy that I did. So, a lot of people have been asking what's next now that I finished the fucking 4,000, 10,000 hour tutorial here of maxing the account. What am I going to do now? Am I going to quit RuneScape? And the answer is absolutely not. I plan on finally doing what I enjoy in the game, which is bossing and raids. And then there's also, of course, the Inferno. Inferno being like the hardest PvM challenge the game offers currently. Solo challenge the game offers currently. So I do want to learn the Inferno to get the Infernal Cape. So I do have more goals in the game that I will be pursuing. Plus, there is a new skill coming to the game for the first time in a long, long time. So I'm going to have to max that pretty soon in order to keep the account maxed. So that's another goal that I'll have for it. So I'm not quitting by any means. I'm just very happy to finally be done maxing the account, and just wanted to share that. That's about it. So, yeah.